Well, hello everyone. Great to see you again. And hey Drew, and hey Tanya. Yeah, and hey Michael. So yeah, it has been another week, and I hope you've had a good one. I have. A lot going on, a lot of craziness, but a lot of productive work. And that's one of the challenges in the summer that I've always had. I don't know if you go through this. For me, historically, I always do a lot of events and fairs and conventions and that kind of thing in the spring, and then in the fall, and then in the summer and in the winter break, Christmas break, I guess, kind of. That's when I always get a lot of work done. So I'm just doing a lot of prep work, and busy work in a way, but in the end, it'll be worth it. So that's kind of what I've been doing. How have y'all been doing? Hopefully, getting a lot done as well. I know a lot of the prep work I've been doing has been for Dragon Con, which doesn't have as much to do with Faire, but it is still a major event of the year for me on Labor Day weekend that I go to in Atlanta. And it is huge. It's going to be a huge event I'm going to, and the first really, really huge one after COVID. So that's going to be interesting. We'll see how that goes. Just usually it's around 60 plus thousand people. So no pressure during one weekend. We'll see how that works. So yeah, if now that you're on, please go ahead and share the stream on Facebook if you're there, and please like it, and also like the channel on YouTube if you haven't as yet. We always appreciate it. And I'm really glad Alicia could join us tonight because she's kind of having to do this while she's at work. So I always give her so much credit for being able to multitask that way. Always a pleasure. Ah, yes. And Alicia, I have seen Alicia at Dragon Con in years past. So yeah, hopefully she can get back there at some point. It is a fun convention. If you're doing a convention, I don't know if that's the one you should start with if you've never been to one, because that is. I mean, there are a few major conventions in the country, and that's one of them. I mean, Comic Con, of course, and for a general convention, and Dragon Con for a sci-fi fantasy convention, and then Gen Con for a gaming convention. Those are kind of the big ones, and yeah, Dragon Con is huge. So might not be the best one to start with because it can be overwhelming. The closest thing I've ever been able to compare it to is when I was a kid and my father would take me to a really huge football game. And the crowds would just be in the tens of thousands, and I'd be holding his hand and he'd be walking me through trying to get through all those people. It was a little overwhelming as a kid. And but I really thank him for that because it really prepped me for Faire. After going through so many football and baseball games as a kid, and basketball too, I really crowds weren't overwhelming. I was kind of used to it, so it kind of prepped me in a way. It kind of prepped me. So good stuff. Oh, and Jan made it. Hey, great to see you too. Um, and Drew, you're not wrong. Um, you know, I Paulo Garbanzo, the juggler, has started playing at Gen Con. He went a few years ago for the first time, and you don't normally see non-musical acts at conventions. It's kind of rare. So he got his feet wet with that, and he had some really good success and trying to build on that. And of course, now he's got doing the gaming shows on his channel, Nat 21. But yeah, I mean, I think the doors are starting to open for more non-musical acts at conventions. So yeah, Drew, you really should look into that if you're up for that. Maybe start with some local conventions. See, I know in the South and the Houston area and everything, there are definitely some options. So something to look for. Um, yes, yes, yes. That it is working at the tables at conventions can be a bit overwhelming too. In fact, it's almost, but it's a benefit because you're behind the table. So where everybody else is squeezed in like sardines, it's like you've got this barrier, this table between you and everybody else. So you get to people watch without having people right in your face. So I honestly, I love having a table at conventions because I'll walk around and see stuff, and then I'll go right back to the table, and it's like, okay, I'm behind the table. I've got this separation. It'll be fine, and it really helps psychologically for me. It is very, very nice. Oh, and Drew is on staff. Okay, I did not know that. Comic Palooza. Okay, yeah, and you should look at getting hired there. Really, just see what you can do. I mean, the main problem with conventions over Ren Fair, though, fairs tend to pay performers, and then you also can make a little extra with sales and tips of your merch. Conventions are the other way around normally. They don't often pay very well, if at all. So what they do is they give you, free passes and usually a table to sell your merch and, some promotion and that kind of thing. And you make your money on sales. So yeah, you don't even really take tips normally. It's mostly sales. So you really have to have merch to make your money. So that would be the tough thing for you, Drew, I think. If you can figure out a way to manage that, I think you've got a shot because you definitely have an interesting approach. And believe it or not, yeah, let's talk about that later because I think through some of the conventions are all run differently, as you know. I think you'd be an interesting addition maybe through some of the gaming tracks at some conventions and doing some special events for that. I could see some interesting stuff. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that in the future because I think you'd be an interesting addition, definitely. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing is the crossover that you get from conventions and Ren Fair, back and forth. I mean, it kind of started. My take is it kind of started around 15, 20 years ago, somewhere around there is when it kind of started. Back then, when I was first starting at conventions, and I'd occasionally get some pushback where people they wanted to separate Ren Fair from conventions, and they thought it was starting to get crossover, and they were concerned. Um, so that was kind of interesting. But I've talked about this a little bit, I think, on this show before. But it's been interesting to see that crossover, at, like the whole, uh, like the stormtrooper wearing a kilt at Fair, or and you see the SCA sometimes at conventions. So you get a lot of LARPing and things like that sometimes. So it gets kind of interesting where you get that crossover, and it's only increased, especially over the last decade, because people go to Fair and they may have spent a lot of time on this cosplay outfit that they wore at a convention, and they think, well, I'd like to wear it. I'd like to use it as much as I can. So they'll wear that at Fair too. And sometimes that can work really well. When it first started, I wasn't quite sure because I thought, you're mixing genres. I don't know if this is a good thing. And it kind of bothered me. But everybody remembers the old joke that dates back, several decades of people dressing up in Star Trek uniforms and going to a Ren Fair and pretending that they're visiting a primitive society. And they're all in their tricorders analyzing it, and they're role playing the whole time. It's a little weird, but the whole point is having fun. So as long as people go and they don't interrupt the people who are taking it a little more seriously for the historical aspect, I'm fine with it. I think that's really the trick. As long as you don't make it all about you, I think that it all works. Drew, hey, yeah, I mean that would be interesting too if you could do a comic book and do that. Um, the problem with comic books is there's a lot of competition, but there's also interest. So you'd need to have the shows there to build that persona and sell it to people in the audience, and then your comic could be the whole. I mean, really, my theory about fairs and performances is people want to give you money if they like your show. They just need an excuse and a way to do it. So if you have something that is a, a transaction so that they can give you money to show their appreciation, excellent. So that yeah, a comic book might really do that. Really, really might do that well. Uh, oh yeah, and Tanya's talking about the Doctor Who's that come to the medieval fair. That's true. And before on this show, I've talked a little bit about the themed weekends where they'll have like a time travelers weekend or a um, fantasy weekend or something like that. And there's always been a certain amount of fantasy at Faire. It started with sort of like the Fae, the fairies, who the Faire started on a little bit on the mythological aspect of history, and it's just been expounded upon. So yeah, yes, yes, yes. Um, and TRF has a doctor on cast. Yes, that is just frightening. I mean, once Marty started doing Groucho Marx as a cast member at TRF, I knew all the gloves were off. Everything's game. I mean, once he did that, and they did the Marx Brothers, yeah. I mean, that's an odd choice. I mean, he had fun with it, but yeah, that was. I realized that any semblance of historical accuracy was pretty much out the window. Yeah, right, right, yeah. He did a good job with it. I was aghast at first. I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of like, "Oh my God, you're doing Groucho, really?" But then I saw him do it, and he did a great job with it. I will give him so much credit. So yeah, yeah. If you're gonna do something really outside the box, do it well, and it's okay. I guess that's a good lesson right there. Oh, and I wanted to go ahead and tell everybody, you know, that in a couple of days, Happy Bastille Day. I don't know how many of you follow that. Nice, very, very notable French holiday. But every July the 14th is Bastille Day, and a major event in the French Revolution from, was it 1789? So, yes, and it's been a major holiday every year since 1880, I believe. So, on and off before that, but officially since 1880. And I find it interesting that a lot of major holidays that people celebrate these days kind of got their start in the late 1800s. I guess it was just in fashion to kind of get that rolling. Holidays were big. Yeah, the day that the Bastille changed occupancy. That's a good way to put it. I like that. I like that. So, yes, I should go ahead and do my, yes, Happy Bastille Day. Always got to, do the graphics when you can, right? Because it's important. But yeah. And I find it interesting that this is a noted holiday, even in America. And even though it's not really an American holiday, there is an interesting amount of crossover with the French, because, of course, they had their revolution and we had ours. And it's fascinating. I mean, historically, we always identified more with England in a lot of ways, but then we also identified with France in a lot of ways, which is kind of fascinating because France and England, let's face it, didn't always get along so well. But always interesting. I love history that way. I'm sure most of you do too, because, well, we're talking about Ren Fairs as a theme. So how can you not like a little history at least? Anyway, so yeah, that is Happy Bastille Day, and then that is in a couple of days. Celebrate how you'd like. Don't know if maybe getting some French pastries would be a good route to go, but hey, anything that makes you happy, I'll say do it. Always good. And Kathy is on YouTube saying that her Facebook wasn't up yet, so she jumped on YouTube. So thanks for doing that. And is commenting on some of the travel weekends and time travel weekends. Yeah, definitely. Well, now another interesting thing that's going on this weekend is even more Ren Fairs than before. I think last week we had 8 Ren Fairs that were open around the country, and now we're up to, I believe, 11. So we're kind of hitting that middle of the summer high point of number of Ren Fairs now going on at the same time. And it's kind of interesting because back in the day, and back in the day for me is 15, 20 years ago, they didn't have as many Ren Fairs in the summer because it was just considered too hot. But as more and more Ren Fairs have kind of come along, yeah, I mean, it's they've had to try to, the smaller fairs especially have tried to uh, separate themselves from the other fairs going on and not going on at the same time because the competition would be stiff. So they tend to gravitate to the summer. So you have just a few large Ren fairs in the summer and a lot of small ones. But small Ren fairs can be a lot of fun and certainly less overwhelming than dealing with 25,000 people sometimes. So it's not a bad place to go, and I definitely like it. Ah. Oh, and Kathy just went back to Facebook. Excellent. She's just flip flopping back and forth, time traveling from YouTube to Facebook. I like it. And Liz is right. France bankrolled the American Revolution. Certainly, yeah, France was an ally in the revolution for sure, and definitely was an interesting supporter. Of course, militarily, when it comes to arms and things, they've had a reputation for the last several hundred years of supporting sides in wars through militarily or however. It's interesting. I think that's part of why they've always had a reputation of being the French being the language of business around the world for so many years. So kind of interesting. Oh, wow. Okay. So allergy meds in California. Good to know. Good to know. And Jan went to the Kentucky Fair. Jan, please tell us about the Kentucky Fair since you went. I'm really curious about that. Was that, yeah, let us know what you thought because I will be interested. While you're doing that, I'll go ahead and jump into, the fairs that are going on. Let's take a quick look at that here. Yeah, you'll notice that, yeah, a lot of the same ones that we had before. I mean, Colorado Renaissance Fair in Larkspur, Colorado. That's what Alicia just mentioned. And then we have the Kentucky Highland Renaissance Festival in Eminence, Kentucky, and the East Idaho Renaissance Fair again in Rexburg, Idaho, and the Mid-Michigan Enchanted Forest in Vassar, Michigan, and the Sterling Renaissance Festival in Sterling, New York, and the Bristol Renaissance Festival in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Great Lakes Medieval Fair and Marketplace in Rock Creek, Ohio. Then, now what we have added here is the Maine Renaissance Fair in Acton, Maine, the Utah Midsummer Renaissance Fair, and that's going on from Thursday to Saturday, which is a little interesting and different, in Cedar City, Utah, and the Black Hills Renaissance Festival, that's on Saturday only in Lead, South Dakota. And then the Sylvan Beach Pirates Weekend. And this is actually pretty close to the other New York Renaissance Fair in Sterling, but it's in Sylvan Beach, New York. So Sylvan Beach Pirates Weekend. That's Thursday through Saturday as well. And yeah, and Drew is completely right. They're all north of the Mason-Dixon line. Yeah, I mean, in fact, yeah, it's pretty nuts not to. I mean, and what's interesting is because of the heat wave that's been going on in the Northwest, a lot of that has been kind of challenged because of that. And even in Idaho, it's kind of on the cusp a little bit of that heat wave. Not as bad as other places, but it is a little warm there. Utah will be as well. So interesting. But yeah, definitely a good mix of fairs across the country. So something to keep an eye out for. And if you're in that area and would like to try a new fair, some of these small ones, hey, give it a shot. Because I think small fairs, you're either going to love it or you're not. And if you don't, well, you probably didn't spend a lot of money because it's a small fair. And eat your turkey leg and head out. But generally, you can find at least a few good acts that you'd like to see and give it a shot. So yeah, most are way up north. Liz, okay, excellent. Yeah, this is the the weather in Austin has been actually quite nice for the summer, especially very, very tolerable. I mean, low 90s is a high, and that's, believe me, I was here the year that we had the over a month of 100-degree weather straight every day, no breaks, 100 degrees plus every day for over a month, and I remember it well. That was several years ago, but no, this has been a good year for us. It's just, but that's the way it works, you know. Good year one place, bad year another. Everything's relative and relates. No, Bristol is not very small. I mean, when I said there were a few big ones in the summer, Jan, that's kind of what I was referring to. Bristol, Sterling, Colorado, those are kind of the big summer fairs. Yeah, right, Drew. We've had so much rain here too. I mean, not overwhelming flood rain, but a good amount of rain and steady rain, which I don't know. I mean, we're definitely we're no drought worries here in Austin, so that's been nice. But yeah, but yeah, it's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. Yeah, after TRF, I think all fairs seem small to you, Drew. And TRF was the first fair I ever went to, so I kind of understand. You kind of get used to that when that's what you measure everything by. Everything kind of seems a little small, but after you've done a lot, you kind of get that view of this is a small fair, this is a medium-sized fair, and this is a large fair. And TRF is definitely Texas Renaissance Festival. You kind of have to almost give that a separate category with just a few other fairs as being an extra large fair, because of how things have gone. Because Texas Renaissance Festival is larger than Scarby, but Scarborough Fair, I can't really call that a medium fair anymore. I have to call that a large fair, so you almost need a fourth category. So that's kind of where I am with that. But yeah. So yeah, if you are going to please check out those fairs and see if any of them appeal to you. I'd love to hear more about it. And yeah, Jan said that it's a small but well run and reasonable amount of music, and Matt Young, the Pride of Ireland, was performing. Yeah, and Matt Young, he's been on our channel before, and great performer and everything. Yeah, Matt is interesting. When I first heard about Matt Young, it was all like, another Irish musician, the guy who plays guitar and sings. Damn it. No, because you start thinking that, you've got competition. But I quickly realized we do not do anything alike at all. I mean, he mainly goes for more of a pub song approach to music and doing Irish music on stage, and he's very good at it. Great voice, very operatic, and a lot of fun, and a really nice guy. And for me, I kind of stayed away from pub music, especially early on. I'm getting more into it now, but I've kind of gone with other things, and I play the recorder as much as I can and kind of mix it up a lot, and we're nothing alike. So, and that's always the beautiful thing. You try not to be too much like the other performers out there, because you want to be unique as much as possible. Always true. Wow. Okay. That's always interesting. Okay. Well, let's jump into 7 reasons real quick. I don't know if did I leave them all up? I think I did. Yes, I did. Oh man, they're all up. And was talking about that, and so we thought, how about the 7 reasons you might dream about Faire? So I thought that was important. So here we go. 7 reasons you might dream about Faire. Number 7, your brain is trying to tell you something. So yes, because you might be thinking it's time to go back to Faire. Just go with the obvious. Sometimes with dreams, sometimes a cake is just a cake. So it's just, you're dreaming about Faire, you want to go back to Faire. Maybe, you miss it. Maybe you should. So yes, your brain is just trying to tell you something. Number 6, you miss your friends. And I've talked about this on the show before. I know a lot of performers and cast who a main reason why they keep doing Faire, into like year 10 and year 15 and all that, is because a lot of their social group, a lot of their friends, some of their closest friends are at Faire. And the idea of leaving that um, is traumatic. I mean, it's like you're leaving all of your friends. So yeah, people keep doing that because that's, with rehearsals with cast and all of that, they'll spend 16 weeks sometimes more of the year, 16 weekends with their friends, and it's a big deal. So yes, yes. Um, Drew says, "What does the "you're fired" fair dream mean?" Well, I think that's more of an anxiety dream. That's more of a fear thing, a more uh, fear of you're not good enough, which every artist feels at some point. But don't worry about it. You're good enough. So don't stress about that one, Drew. Number five. Number five. You go outside and miss nature. I mean, yeah, you go out, you're indoors all the time working like crazy. It's summer, it's hot, so you stay inside. And you go outside once and you're kind of like, oh, wow, this is great. Gosh, reminds me of Faire. Sometimes getting back to nature it's that whole association you get. So, yeah, 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 that's important. That's important. Number four, advertisements. I mean, it's just an association. You go in, you see an advertisement on a billboard or something on a website that you go to or whatever, talking about a fair, and boom, sticks in your brain and goes straight to your dreams. Dreams are insidious that way. So, and so are advertisements, as a matter of fact. So yes, sometimes it's just the advertisements. Number three, number three reason why you might dream about Faire. Okay, you're just in a mood. And, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Faire, how many phallic symbols are at Faire, really? I mean, guys on horses with lances. I mean, come on. People with swords fighting back and forth. I mean, let's go back to the original Latin for sword and sheath. And yeah, it's pretty obvious what we're talking about here. I mean, come on. For me, I'm pretty immune to that because what do? I walk around with a portable phallic symbol all day. I mean, yeah. So for me, it's not really that weird. But, maybe you're just in a mood. Maybe you're just horny. I'm just throwing it out there. So, the number two reason why you might dream about Faire. Movies or TV about the time period. I mean, come on. There are so many period pieces. I mean, you might be watching, streaming Outlander or something and checking that out, and, brain goes straight to Faire. That's that's something that you can do that puts you into that kind of time period. So there you go. So then that makes sense. That makes sense. There are so many of those, so many TV shows and movies that are about that. So it kind of makes sense. It really does. And number one, fantasy is good for dreams. And what is Faire about? It's about it's about fantasy. I mean, you're going back and you're dreaming about being there, at least a little bit, getting a taste of what that was like. An idealized taste, certainly, but a taste nonetheless. So, yeah, I mean, it's fantasy leads to fantasy, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, enjoy your dreams and be guilt-free. Now, Alicia hasn't admitted why she was dreaming about Faire last night, and I wasn't going to ask. I'm thinking it's number three, but that's just me. I don't know. I don't know. That's yeah. We'll let her talk about that sometime. But that's what I have for 7 reasons. I hope you liked it. Woo. Okay. So yes. Well, I hope it's been a good week for y'all. Definitely been good for me. I'm gonna have to. Wow, I'm doing so much prep work now and starting to record a lot more and getting some stuff done. So hopefully I'll have a few teases and tidbits about that in the next few weeks, so I can show you some things, or at least let you hear some things, and maybe give you a little behind the scenes of what I've been working on. I don't know if you'd be interested in that, but I thought it might be fun. But yeah, so have a good time and enjoy your enjoy Bastille Day in a couple of days. And if it's a good excuse to go get some pastry, and I'd say, hey, Do it. It's worth it. It's worth it. Get some French pastry. Faire is where our dreams live. Very good and true, Kathy. I totally agree with that. Very right. Very right. It is. It is. Makes our dreams real. So, yes. So I hope you've had a good time tonight, and I know I have, and it's been silly and goofy as always. But look forward to seeing you next week, and have a great evening, a great night, and not only a life that's fair, but have a fair life. And I'll see you soon. Take care.